All right, so one of you guys sent me a video and you wanted to hear my thoughts on it. I've not watched yet. I don't know what we're getting into, so I reserve the right to either agree or disagree with whatever the conclusions in here are. But this was a video shared by one of you guys from a creator named Saukko505. GTA 6 will cost more than everyone thought, and I have proof. And they sent this to me because apparently they get into some financial documentation, baby, which, you know me, I love me some financial documentation. It's one of my passions in life. Let's see, because apparently GTA 6 costs a lot of money. A lot of money. The budgets are crazy. Let's see what he has to say.
Most people think that the budget for GTA 6 is somewhere around $1 and $2 billion. And I wanted to figure out the real number, the actual budget of GTA 6. So I calculated the operating costs of Rockstar games from 2019, a bit after the release of RDR2, to the expected release of GTA 6 on November 19th, 2026. So watch through the video to see all my accurate calculations down to the cents to get the absolute minimum budget and
Hold on. I need to enhance. So just off the rip, it looks like he's got breakdowns for expected salaries for animators, QA, dev, artists, others, with overhead total 2019 to 2026. He also breaks it down overhead in general, operating lease rentals, plant and machinery, not planes, operating lease rentals, land and buildings, auditors, recommendations, exchange loss, leasehold improvements, computer and office equipment, futures. Okay. I'm intrigued. Continue.
And then additional estimates to that to get the high and low estimates of the budget. And the results are going to surprise you. I can guarantee that. My name is Saukko, and I know a lot of things about GTA 6. However, I'm not an accountant, so some of the things I calculated in this video might be wrong, and my methods might not be the most efficient ones. So just bear with me, and please correct my mistakes. Let's look for a baseline for the budget of GTA 6. Currently, some of the media releases with the highest production costs are the video game Star Citizen, RDR2,
shout out Star Citizen. 800 million. I think they've almost raised $1 billion at this point. Yeah, they've spent most of the money, almost all the money. But yes, it's very, very expensive. It's outrageous.
At approximately 540 million. And then some blockbuster movies passing or coming close to 500 million. Of course, most of those numbers are just estimates, and no official numbers have ever been released for any of them. But as GTA 6 seems to be massive, it's very likely that it's going to be the most expensive media product ever so far. And of course, it's gonna be at least more expensive than RDR2. So to figure out the budget, we need to make some assumptions, which means that the final number we come to will be an estimation and might not represent the real budget of GTA 6.
I appreciate the disclosure.
That has been only working on GTA 6 since the start of fiscal year 2020. So the money they put into GTA Online and RDO is negligible compared to the total operating costs of Rockstar Games.
I understand why he's doing it, because my guess is he's going to look at total employee counts and employee numbers and then figure out average pay, and then he's going to break all that down, which is fine. But GTA Online does still receive a lot of content updates. They do have a massive support staff for that. Same like Red Dead Online to a lesser extent, for sure. But yeah, I think negligible. I'm nitpicking over the word choice. I don't think it's negligible, but I guess in the context of like a $2 to $3 billion budget, maybe like 200 million was spent on, supporting those games for a decade. So it maybe like it's not negligible, but yeah, I see what he's saying. Okay, continue.
We know that Rockstar started working on the game in 2014 as they were scouting areas for the game, and full development started somewhere 2019 to 2020 according to Strauss-Zelnick. And from the 2022 leaks, we can see that a lot of work was already put into the game in 2019. But how do we start the progress of figuring out the budget? Well, probably the three highest expenses for Rockstar are leasing, so renting their studios, office supplies and equipment, like computers and servers, and labor and salaries, which typically is the highest expense in game development.
Oh yeah.
And that seems to be the case with GTA 6 too. So, we need to determine two things. How many employees does Rockstar have, and what's the average salary of an employee? We can just Google how many people work at Rockstar Games. 6,000 employees. And LinkedIn says that they have bit more than 5,000 employees. I wonder what's the source for that info. How many people do they have per studio? The only thing that really appears is this image, which does state that Rockstar has about 6,000 employees in total.
So this is the only potential hiccup. We'll see how he handles it. But you'll notice that Rockstar does have a bunch of different branches. As with many studios, different studios work on different things. So like Ubisoft, for example, they'll have Ubisoft Montreal, Quebec, Toronto, Montpellier. They have Ubisoft Bordeaux. They have all these different ones. Ubisoft Singapore, and each of them will be doing different things. So like Singapore will work on water physics and the water tech and the ship mechanics for AC Odyssey, right? But then the main story will be worked on in Montreal, but maybe they have like the combat team is primarily working with support from like Toronto. And so it's like totally split up, and it makes it really, really difficult, you know, to break it down individually. But with this, you'll notice one of the biggest ones that's almost never talked about is this one, Rockstar India. They have 1,600 employees there. 1,600. I've heard rumblings it's even more now, but 1,600. That's wild. And this is where you could potentially get into some like hiccups, because shocker, Rockstar India is a lot cheaper to run than Rockstar North, or like a studio in England or New York. You know, it's way, way cheaper. Like each employee's costs is like literally a fraction of what you'd pay somebody in like Western markets to do it. Reese from Kiwi Talks, again, great page. Go follow his stuff. He's doing interviews constantly with developers from BGS, from Rockstar. So he's talking to the people who work on these games actively. He said, a lot of gamers underestimate how important Rockstar India is to the development pipeline for GTA 6. It was also the case with RDR2. Seriously, look at the credits of RDR2. In a number of cases, they do the first pass of animation before it's handed off to other studios for them to do the final polish. They are respected because they somehow managed to walk that line of pumping out good art at great speed while maintaining quality, and the devs are cheaper than US devs as well. People like to take shots at Rockstar India and India in general, but in this case, whatever stereotypes you hear about the devs are dead wrong. They're very talented and they're cheaper, right? So anybody, I saw one person was trying to run with this and be like, oh, they're outsourcing all the labor, so GTA 6 is gonna suck. It's like, bro, no. Like they were working on Red Dead 2 as well, which I don't think anybody's saying the animation in that was bad, you know? But the reason I'm pointing this out is because, and I will see if he mentions it. I would imagine he is, based on just this, but the salary that you're paying out in New York or Rockstar North is going to be a lot higher than the salary you're paying in, you know, Rockstar India, which is why they have a studio there, and why they do that. But yeah, we'll see.
However, as I'm making this video in the future, I know that Rockstar Lincoln definitely has less than 900 employees. So, what's the original source of this image? Let's just reverse image search it. Oldest match is this Twitter post, and it's made by, oh fucking no, GTS's Countdown. So the source for Rockstar Games having 6,000 employees is a notorious Twitter misinfo account. Oh my.
He does just kind of make up whatever he wants. The numbers are like ballpark, sure, but like GTA 6 Countdown, yeah. No, it's I think he actually blocked me because there was something he said about GTA 6 which was like ridiculous, and I like replied or quote tweeted it or something and said like, I don't think this is true, and he blocked me, which is funny.
My fucking god. So that is a dead end. But from this we can see that Rockstar has 10 studios. Well, actually 11, as Rockstar Australia exists, but they have probably less than 20 people working there, so we can assume that they don't matter. Otherwise, we have studios in 4 different countries. United Kingdom, with studios in London, Lincoln, Leeds, Edinburgh, and Dundee. Then Rockstar India,
Dundee.
Bengaluru, 1 studio in Rockstar Toronto, Rockstar New England, New York, Los
America.
Angeles, and San Diego in the United States. And we will probably need to determine the average salary in each of these countries, because it's very likely that the average salary in Rockstar India is way less than in US.
True.
Let's start with Rockstar India, as that's maybe the easiest one, as if we trust Kiwi Talks, Rockstar India has 1,600 employees, which makes sense according to GTA Wiki, which actually recently moved from fandom to a new address gta.wiki. So in the future, avoid using the fandom version of GTA Wiki and use the wiki at gta.wiki. When Rockstar India became a part of Rockstar Games, they had about 800 employees in 2019, and they have been hiring heavily since, so 800 to 1,600 employees. How about the average salary? Well, we can kinda use Glassdoor. This is not an ad. Glassdoor is a fucking shit website, and they collect more user data than fucking anything else. So don't join it unless you need a job or something. But basically, here employees can declare their salary and at what position they are working at in the company. So if we just take how many people work in each role in the company and get the average salary of each role, we can determine the average salary of a person working in Rockstar India, which is about $6,000, and the minimum overhead costs per employee.
Is that annually? Is that annually? Bro.
Is 20%. So
It's
I'm
gotta
just gonna
be
use
right.
that number, which brings fees per employee to a bit over $7,000. And if we assume that Rockstar India has been growing linearly, so gaining same amount of employees every year, and assuming that the salaries have stayed constant, which they most likely have not. But anyways, we come to the number of $66 million from the start of fiscal year 2020 to November 19th, 2026. So
You're starting to see why they might have thousands of developers in India. Like there's amazing talent everywhere in the world. Amazingly talented artists all across the globe, whether it's in India or China or the US or wherever. There's amazingly talented people everywhere. The difference is in India, you could get away with charging this. Whereas in the US, you'd have to pay them 10 times, 15 times, 20 times as much. If you need an employee in like the Bay Area, there's all these studios that work in like San Francisco and Paris and New York and Montreal. Like to live there is really expensive. Like you're probably starting the salary at like 70,000, 80,000, but over here, you can get the still amazingly talented devs for way, way, way cheaper.
So basically negligible when we are talking about the billions of dollars. Then let's take a look at the UK, and things actually get surprisingly more different. And these calculations about India were kinda useless. So after trying to figure out these things for a few days, I actually realized...
No, San Fran, I think you're more in the average of like 100,000 plus. Montreal, I genuinely am not sure. I know Montreal is expensive, but if you live outside the main like old city and you commute 20 minutes in, you can probably live on like 70 fairly comfortably over there. I know it's really expensive, but probably much more. San Fran is just insane. San Fran, $100,000 a year, you're probably still living with 5 roommates.
that a lot of financial statements in the United Kingdom are public. So if I just go to gov.uk and there to Rockstar Games UK Limited, we can find full accounts going all the way back to the establishment of the company. And we got really lucky with this, as since 2018, all of the different studios have all been combined to be under the same limited liability company. And if we actually look at the other studios here, few of them have actually been dissolved very recently, actually during the making of this video. And from these filings, we can also see how many people worked in individual studios of Rockstar Games around 2017. For example, Rockstar Leeds in 2017 had 80 employees. And of course, as all the studios have been under the same company since 2018, we can just take the employee amounts from Rockstar Games UK Limited. And this document also shows salaries and other expenses. And these numbers even include overhead costs like pensions and social security costs. So if I add the salaries from 2019 to the release of the game up in a spreadsheet, we get the number 2.7 billion for only people working in UK. So something must be wrong here. If we look at the statements from 2019, we can see that staff expenses were about 90 million. However, if we look at the statement from the next year, 2022, we can see that they restated the expenses from 2019 and increased them all the way to 200 million. So at least to me, it seems like they started counting the salaries of all studios globally in this Rockstar Games UK Limited document.
Okay, so they restructured everything and then funneled it through there. I don't know the details of how UK like accounting laws and stuff work, but I could totally see it if they just wanted to funnel all of the expenses through the UK business so that they get the tax benefits in the UK as opposed to like the tax benefits in India or wherever. So I could see that. I'm not sure how many hoops they'd have to jump through for that, but that could be a part of it, is if they're just trying to restructure to save money on taxes. That's pretty common.
Even though the amount of employees is from studios from the UK, or it could be something like foreign bonuses, so like performance rewards, which won't include salaries. However, if we try to start figuring out the salaries of the other studios from outside the UK, we might accidentally end up double counting some numbers. So it's better to assume that this number is the total salaries and bonuses worldwide for all Rockstar Games studios. However, it probably excludes overhead costs for countries that are not the UK. So, for overhead costs in India, we can use the previous Glassdoor estimates. While for the US, I'm just gonna take the number of UK overhead costs, as in general they are bigger in the United States and Rockstar Games probably has more employees there. So taking the UK number is a very low estimate. I also had to estimate some salaries which aren't public yet. From April 1st, 2025 to the release of the game. I'm just gonna take the number from fiscal year 2024, which ended in 2025, multiply that by 1.5, so all of fiscal 26 and half of fiscal 27, and just add those numbers to the total count. So yellow highlights like this are estimates. Then some of the non-staff fees for Rockstar UK. And again, I'm assuming that this is for all of the studios in UK. Firstly, operating lease rentals, plant and machinery.
They have plants. Sorry, bad joke. I mean, I do think that this, obviously we're guesstimating on a lot of it. There's a lot of like little bitty tricks that are played in, I mean, tricks makes it sound dishonest. It's not. There's a lot of financial maneuvering that happens, you know. Yeah, exactly. Afterthought read my mind with the $10 super chat. The issue with using corporate tax documents for stuff like this is that you run into creative accounting and it's not realistic reflection of the money spent. Well, and you have to remember that for a lot of this, like there is a financial incentive to inflate the expense number on the like sheets that you're submitting for tax documentation. So like when I'm paying taxes, when any business is, you want, as far as taxes are concerned, for your expenses to be as high as physically possible. You know, you want, as far as the government is concerned, for your amount of raw profit to be as small as it can be. You know, that's the key, because the lower that is, the lower your what's called tax liability is, and the better off you'll be. So obviously, like with this, yes, there's an incentive for the expense number to be as massive as possible, because that means it's saving money on taxes. Even if they got there by like playing some tricks, you know, doing stuff like that, that's totally fine. But that's the key. But when we're like estimating expenses, like at the end of the day, does it really matter if like they're playing a trick to get to a $2.7 billion number? They still got to the $2.7 billion number. You know, they still got there. So even if it's like maybe some expenses and some things were claimed that maybe are like a little aggressive in terms of being claimed, it's still what's on the books. So it's still the expense, you know? So even if there is tricks and, you know, clever, creative financial accounting to get there, it still is how much on paper was spent on the game, you know? So I think it still is fair and interesting. Real quick, we have the man, the myth, the legend himself in chat. Where did it go? Did it scroll past? I could have sworn I just saw him in chat. Hold on. Where did it go? Well, there it is. No, don't apologize for your accent. Are you apologizing for your accent? How dare you? How dare you? Don't apologize for your accent. You're totally fine. You're crazy. No, you're totally good. Yes, Saukko is in chat with us. Glad to have you here, my friend. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. You know, this is my cup of tea. Let's see what else we've got. Oh my God. Auditors. I thought when I zoomed in, it was auditor's recommendation. Remuneration. That's a word. That's a bingo word for you right there. Remuneration. Bingo word. No, Scrabble word. That's what I meant.
This is only about
Bingo is a bingo word.
£40,000 annually, so it really doesn't matter. However, it's maybe something like a few leased company cars or a random piece of industrial equipment. And then, operating lease rentals, land and buildings. Now, these are big numbers, averaging at about 3 to 4 million annually. So these are basically your office rents. Basically, what they pay to rent Rockstar North or Rockstar London. This number does increase a lot. So either they got more office spaces somewhere, the rents increased, or they only gradually added the offices of other studios, Rockstar Leeds, Rockstar North, Rockstar Lincoln, to be paid through Rockstar Games UK.
Probably all of the above, honestly. Like it's probably all of the above.
Then, auditors' remunerations. So basically paying money to whoever made this document. Exchange losses aren't really losses, so I'm not including them in the...
Yeah, it's very common for big corporations to hire outside auditing firms. So like they'll hire an accounting firm to come in and audit their books. Because basically you want to be able to go to shareholders and say, no, our books are legit. We're not hiding money. We're not stealing money. These guys who are independent came in, audited everything. We're good. It also protects you against potential, audits from in the States. It would be the IRS, because, you can catch any problems before they happen. So that's pretty common. Net foreign exchange loss. This is what's fun when you get to international companies is you got to start figuring out how to juggle international currencies.
Calculation. Then leasehold improvements. So these are your structural renovations, like a new boiler room, if they want to tear down some walls, or install a new kitchen to one of the studios. Then computers and office equipments. That's basically self-explanatory. And
yeah, leasehold improvements. This is everything from, like he said, you want to put up some new walls to get some office space. You want to do new floors in the building. It's improvements to the leased building. It's pretty common. So every time like you go, like I just told you guys, when I went to try Saros early in Finland, we went to the Housemarque studio and they told us that they had just completed a renovation of the building. They had just like overhauled the lobby and a bunch of stuff like that. Those costs of renovating the lobby would be in leasehold improvements.
And fixtures and fittings. This is basically just furniture. And yes, technically, most of these purchases are capital investments, but they are expenses during a year, so I'm going to count them into the total operating cost.
Yeah, and the only other thing to note with some of this stuff, like leases is pretty self-explanatory and all these, but a lot of equipment specifically, at least in the States, again, it might be different in the UK, but at least in the States, when you buy something, you will have depreciation to factor in. So like you buy a $10,000 workstation today, it's not worth $10,000 5 years from now, right? So there's certain tax laws across the globe. I'm not sure exactly how it works in the UK, but at least in the US, you can do things like depreciating that asset over time. And that's something where you can also see it tagged in the documentation for like an expense because you lost money equivalent to the depreciation of the asset. And so you can break it up long term like that. So there's a lot of ways that you could get to, bigger numbers, even if you're not physically burning through that cash, things are depreciating so that you can see that also discounted. Unless you have a ton of PS5s. Yeah. In which case you gained money because it became more valuable. Yeah. Unless you had a stockpile of RAM. It's like I told you guys, when I upgraded my PC, I had a couple of things to swap out there. Like I added more RAM and stuff like that. I did that. I think it was August, like mid-August or something. Within 4 weeks, my computer increased in value by like $2,000 just because of the RAM crisis. Like, it's actually stupid. But that's what happens, baby.
Could calculate depreciation, so a loss of value for things, but I don't feel like that is necessary here.
Oh, he read my mind.
Depreciation.
I don't feel like it's necessary here. It's just hard to say because they don't break it down that finely in this documentation. And to be clear, I don't know exactly how it works in the UK. I guess I could do very quick research. In the UK, are there net operating loss carry forwards? And is there also tax protections for like depreciation for businesses on big assets. Let's see. Carry forwards. Your company can carry forward trading losses forward to deduct from profits from future accounting periods as the losses continue. Yes. Since April 2017, the deduction for carried forward losses is limited to 5 million plus 50% of qualifying profits exceeding that amount. You can also do carryback losses sometimes, which is tricky. Basically, like you'd be able to go back in time with the expenses from today, which is weird. Let's see, tax protection for depreciation of assets. First year allowance in the UK allows for 100% deduction in the first year for specific items such as new, unused, energy-saving, environmentally friendly equipment. Annually investment allowance, businesses can claim up to 100% tax relief on up to $1 million of qualifying expenditure on plant and machinery in a single year. So there's all sorts of different things that they could do. But the point is, again, if we go back to just what we said a few minutes ago, they have every incentive to make these numbers as big as they possibly can, okay? Because the bigger these numbers are, the smaller their tax bill is. So if you're running a business, you want these numbers to be big. They can get there in all sorts of clever ways, you know, but if we're just looking at what is the raw expense, then, you know, that's what they're claiming on the pen and paper at the end of the day. So, you know, even if they got there in a creative way, it still is what they are claiming on their documentation are the expenses.
Included here, only total cost of purchases. And one of these fees, I'm not sure which one, includes things like maintenance from outside contractors. So possibly your cleaning, handyman work, or boiler repairs. And the bottom two lines, once again, are estimates for 1.5 years. And these expenditures from April 1st, 2019, all the way up to November 9th, 2026, comes at the cost of 100 million, which is surprisingly little when we compare it to the staff expenditures, which we talked about previously, as they were 2 billion and 688 million pounds. And if we add the staff and other expenditures together, we get 2 billion and 786 million pounds once again, and in United States dollars, with the current exchange rate, we come to 3.6 billion US dollars. However, as the pound is currently relatively strong compared to the US dollar, the true amount is way less in USD. If I had to guess, it's somewhere around 3 billion. And of course, these numbers do not account for inflation. So if a real accountant did this, they should include foreign exchange rates and inflation. However, let's just go with the number of 3 billion from these expenses. Then we have the question of American, Canadian, and Indian overhead costs. Do we include them in the calculation? If we add them to the previous number, so assume that they are not included in the 3 billion, then there's an additional 700 to 800 million US dollars to the count. And of course, we have other expenses for the studios outside UK. So again, rent and computers and stuff. We can assume that that is about the same as the UK, even though the rents in the United States are probably higher. But let's just keep the numbers low. So that's another $130 million. Then I think there are two more large expenses which should be included in the calculations. First, of course, marketing. Wikipedia says that RDR2s was in between 200 and 300 million US dollars. So we should assume that it's at about $500 million US dollars, so 500 million. And then music licensing, which is probably less than people think, as we have proof that Rockstar is paying most artists only 7,500 USD per a song license. So if they wanna include above 1,000 songs, and of course some licenses are going to be more expensive than that.
Yeah, I do remember this guy. Do you guys remember this guy? Martin Ware. I was recently contacted by my publishers on behalf of Rockstar Games regarding the possibility of using Temptation on the new GTA 6. Naturally, he was excited about the immense wealth that was about to head my way. Scrolled to the bottom of the email for the offer. It was $7,500 for a buyout of any future royalties from the game forever. To put this in context, GTA 6 gross, I think he meant $8.6 billion. But think of the exposure. Go F yourself. I get that. But like literally do. Think of the exposure. Like, I feel like he just said the thing. Think of the exposure. Like I get, it's not, you don't have to take the deal. Like nobody's saying you have to. But I have a feeling that when GTA 6 launches, you may be regretting that opportunity, because that's a big deal. So I'm with you on this stuff with music licensing and all this. I think again, it mainly just comes down to the expenses for those UK employees are just, it's crazy.
500. So my minimum estimate for song licensing is 10 million and the maximum about 100 million. So, my final estimates. We have the absolute low number with only confirmed fees from Rockstar Games UK Limited. All of that is going to be in pound sterling. Then there's my own minimum estimate. That's going to be in USD. And then there's going to be my high estimate. So what I want you to take away from this video is the minimum official amount and my low estimate. But also keep in mind how expensive the game could be. So, the minimum estimate for Rockstar Games operating costs from April 1st, 2019, the start of fiscal year 2020, to the release of GTA 6 on November 19th, 2026, is the previously stated 2,786 million UK pounds. So the game budget is definitely 2.5 billion, way more than the previous estimate of 2 billion. That's the main point of this video, that the $2 billion is a way low estimate. Then my low estimate in US dollars. Expenses that have gone through Rockstar Games UK Limited, so most likely global salaries and other fees for all UK studios, is 3 billion US dollars, with exchange rates favoring the pound. Then other expenses outside UK have been listed as $130 million. I have excluded the possible overhead costs outside UK in this estimate, as they might be included in the 3 billion of salaries. Then a low estimate for marketing costs, 300 million USD, and song licensing at $10 million, which brings the total of the low estimate to slightly under 3.5 billion US dollars. And as previously stated, this number is possibly missing some outside UK salaries, all outside UK overhead costs, and probably other costs outside the UK. But this is the number I want to take away from here. 3.5 billion US dollars for total operating costs of Rockstar Games from 2019 to the release of GTA 6. Of course, this number does include things like dev work for GTA Online and RDR2 Online, and of course customer service, which works for both of those. However, I'm assuming that those fees are negligible, as currently there are probably less than 20 people working on GTA Online. If you want, you can...
Well, I mean, it is one of those things. Even if you say that, you know, it's like 100 million or 200 million over the last few years to run those things, it's not purely negligible. Like, it's still a lot of money, but it's... it doesn't really change the fact that we're talking in the realm of, you know, billions and billions. And this is one thing where, like, we do see numbers listed for, you know, employment costs for individual companies and like wages and salaries. They outline all of this stuff, social security costs and things, pension costs. And I would assume that like all American taxes for the American employees are being spent, and those expenses are being paid. Are those being funneled back into the UK company? They shouldn't be able to double claim them. So like if you claim the expenses for American employees, I don't think you can double claim them on the UK statements. That wouldn't work. So, you know, you got to pay the taxes in the parent country. I mean, even if we're in the realm where like you're off by 500 million, you're still, again, like still talking in the realm of like 3 billion.
GTA 6. Of course, this number does include things like dev work for GTA Online and RDR2 Online, and of course customer service, which works for both of those. However, I'm assuming that those fees are negligible, as currently there are probably less than 20 people working on GTA Online. If you want, you can take like 1 or 200 millions away from that number. Still, it's gonna be more than $3 billion. And then the high estimate, for which you can see the numbers here with the current US dollar exchange rate, but without inflation, comes out as over 5 billion US dollars. But
yeah, and to be clear, when he's mentioning inflation, it's because like these numbers, like if you wrote off $200 million in 2019, that is a different value in 2019, like when you see that number, compared to if you wrote off 200 million today, you know? So the numbers are just, when you adjust everything for inflation from that earliest time, you know, the numbers will be even scarier. But at some point, I mean, the primary message is that for a game like GTA 6, you're probably talking in the realm of $3+ billion total, especially after all the delays. Because bear in mind, the original rumored budget was about $2 billion. And it was originally supposed to launch in like the expected launch, was it early 2025 was the original launch date? Was when it was expected, like May of 25, I think. It was somewhere in there. And when you push it back by like a year or two, that adds up real quick. Late 25, is that what they said in the first trailer? Was it late 25 or just 2025? It was fall 2025. I forget what exactly they had on the splash screen. But if it's fall 2025, it gets pushed back by like a full year. That's still, for a company this massive, that's hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. I thought it was March 2025. Do I need to check? We'll do it live. F it, we'll do it live. Posted 2 years ago, circa December 4th, 2023. Yeah, they just said 2025. Because I vaguely remember people were expecting maybe it's coming in like May of 2025. People thought it was like 6 months away. When they revealed this, they're like, oh, within 6 months we'll get it. And then it was like, no, probably late 2025. Or no, not 6 months, like 18 months. Because it's December 4th, 2023 is when it dropped. So they revealed it like a full year. So people are thinking it's 18 months away. So May of 2025. But anyway, the point is after some delays and, things being pushed back, it just kind of steadily made it more and more expensive, which is crazy.
But that's an extremely high estimate. So I think the total operating costs globally for Rockstar Games for the development of GTA 6 is going to be in between 3 billion and 4 billion US dollars. And I would love if other people actually checked out the numbers too, and if a real accountant counted the Rockstar Games UK numbers more properly, as again, I don't have any accounting experience. And hey, if my estimates are wrong, at least we proved that the budget is more than 2 billion pounds. Thank you for watching.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think, and there's always going to be some level of pedantry you can get into where it's like, well, actually, they have the online game is a separate project than the single player. So the single player budget is 1.5 billion, but the online is 2.5 billion. Like, of course we can do that type of thing. But I think when people think of GTA 6, they think of the big package, the overall thing. And that, I think it's very fair to say that it's somewhere between like $2.5 and $3.5 billion at this point, when all is said and done, which kind of makes sense because you're talking about a studio with thousands of employees around the globe that have been working on this since like 2019. And that's a while. And it's very expensive, especially when you're talking about world-class talent that you have to pay really well in order to get them to work with you, because you want the best possible thing. So I think we're in the ballpark. Like, as for like whether this is like the official number, I'm sure that the actual number is like a bit tweaked. It's probably like, oh, the real number is 2.15 because we spun off the expenses for this, and then this is covered by that, and then we have this that we're carrying forward over there. But the point is, GTA 6 is stupid freaking expensive, and this type of game is insanely massive, and outrageously expensive. So I think that, that's the main takeaway. But when we look at stuff like this, I have to just show you snippets, because Rockstar being Rockstar, if I just let it play, they will try to strike the video because that's what they do now. But overall, I think that the game is going to make the money back. Like, I don't think it'll have any trouble doing that. I think I think GTA 5 sold like 10 million copies in a day. Like, it's outrageous. So it's going to make the money back, but it's just one of those games that is a once in a generation console generation type of release. There's no other studio and publisher that's willing to bet this much money on a project like this. Because bear in mind, in all of gaming, the whole industry, you have to remember that, like, we're not looking at things in a vacuum. If investors and companies are looking at where to put money, they have a bunch of options. And often, they might look for a 10% return annually or a 20% return annually on their money. And when you're looking at something like GTA 6, you're talking about spending billions of dollars, locking up the money for 6, 7, 8, 9 years at a time before the next big release. And in order to do that, it's also, for any other company, considered extremely high risk. Because, if Ubisoft spent $2 billion on Assassin's Creed, GTA, whatever, it might make a lot of money. It might also not. It might get caught up in its own controversy and flop. Like, there's no company in the world that is willing to take this kind of a bet and to put this many chips on black. It is incredibly rare to see a company willing to put that much money up for something like this. But when you see it, Rockstar, that's why they're just kind of different. They're just kind of different at this point. 6, 7. Exactly. The pre-orders alone could amount to 20 million copies. Yeah. Do I think it's going to cost 70? I think so. Strauss Zelnick did an interview recently where he was talking and, you know, they're going back and forth on stuff. And the interviewer asked him, do you think that there's an opportunity for like advertising within games? So you think GTA 6, you're driving through the city and you see like the, you know, the billboard panel with ads. What if you actually sold those ads? What if actually Mountain Dew paid you to put in all of those billboards a Mountain Dew ad, and you sell long-term advertising within the game to players or to companies that are advertising to the players? And he said, I just don't see how that could work. You know, with some company or with some games like NBA, we can do that because players kind of expect advertising there. But when we're talking about a game, you know, other games, he said, I don't think audiences would be okay with that if they're paying, you know, $70 or $80, or I think he said 80 or 90, but he was around $80. And so a lot of people thought that that was him slipping and saying that it was going to be $80, which is the top of the line, like full AAA pricing. So my guess is that they probably are going to launch it at $79.99. I still think they're going to do an early access thing, like a 5-day early access or something. And it's going to be, if you want that version, it's like $120 or $129.99 or something like that. If you want early access and you don't want to be seen as a brokey, you've got to spend the money. You know, that's kind of what I'm expecting. So, and I think, again, like there's a lot of people out there who are like, I would just wait, bro. There are millions and millions and millions of players out there who will pay more. Like a lot more. Okay. Like I guarantee you, you may be willing to sit on the sidelines for 5 days, but the hype level for this will be so insane, especially in the casual market, that they will pay an extra $50 or $60 to play it early. Like I point to it often because it's so insane, but you remember back when Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was launching, I found this guy on Twitter who was calling people brokies for complaining that it was $70. He's calling people brokies, being like, suck it up, pay it, you brokey. You can't afford $70 for a brand new Warner Brothers game? How dare you? He's calling people brokies, making fun of them for not having money. If people were willing to do that over Suicide Squad, can you even begin to fathom the amount of peer pressure and bullying that will happen over this game? Like every high school, every college, everything is going to be dominated over the discourse surrounding GTA 6. You didn't get early access? Wow. Okay. Broke alert. Like it's going to be toxic as hell, but that's going to be the thing, dude. It's going to be all over the place. It's going to be crazy. It's like $1.99 now. Still probably too much. Yeah. You remember those days. So I just think like I get it. There's some people who don't understand the GTA hype and this is just not their kind of game. That is totally fine. But bro, just because it's not for you, don't let that cloud your evaluation of the situation. GTA 6 will be a game on a scale that we have just never seen before. It is different. Like it's just different. It's crazy. So I think it will make the money back. That's why I think they can afford to spend as much as they've spent on it. But it just reiterates that they need this to land. They could have dropped it maybe last May. They could have probably, but it wouldn't have been ready. It would have been maybe buggy, wouldn't have run particularly well. Maybe, you know, they would have to cut some quest lines and stuff. You know, it would have worked, but they can't afford for it to be good enough. It has to live up to those expectations and the hype. And that's why they're delaying it and spending billions on it at the end of the day. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the budget in total for the online and single player at this point is somewhere over the $3 billion mark when all is said and done, especially factoring in marketing costs. I think they very easily get there. And Rockstar Games, again, bear in mind, traditional marketing for games like this, or for games like AAA games, is usually like, oh, you get some streamers to come out and try your game. Oh, we'll go and we'll get, you know, we'll maybe do a preview event and we'll do some commercials on Twitch and we'll do some TikTok videos and stuff like that. For GTA 6, every gamer on the planet knows about it. The key and where it's really going to blow up is when they can get the casual gamer that's been out of the game for years to come back. When they can get the dude that works in the oil fields to go buy a PS5 to play it, when he can get the guy that played GTA 5 a bunch back in high school or college, and then they come back and they buy a PS5, they maybe they're working as a lawyer or something, and they're like, actually, I'm going to get back in this. I'm going to get together with my buddies. We're going to play it again. That's where this game really explodes, because this is the game that's going to pierce the mainstream veil. Not just pierce it, it's going to rip it open. Okay. You remember back, one of my bellwethers is usually South Park. Like, you remember how when Red Dead 2 launched, there were episodes of South Park about them playing it and about the kids playing it, and Randy and the police officer, not the sheriff, the police chief, playing Red Dead 2 and everything. That's the kind of success that you'll see with this. Like, it's going to be massive and it's going to pierce that veil. As for how they're going to market it, I think they might do some of the more traditional stuff, but my guess is that they're not going to do a lot of, I think they'll actually do surprisingly little gaming focused marketing. Like, I don't think, for example, they're going to do a preview event where they bring Luke Stevens out to try the game early. I don't think they're going to do that. They know I'm going to talk about the game regardless. They know. Why would they pay money to do an event or sponsor people to play the game when they know damn well you'll do it for free? Why would they do that? What they will do, I think, is that they'll get like Snoop Dogg to play the game while high as a kite on a yacht somewhere. And they'll get Oprah to talk about it. And they're going to do weird, wacky, viral stuff. A lot of it's going to be bizarre, I'm sure. They're going to be like, hey, yeah, we put the game on a console and took it up to the ISS. Let astronauts play it early. It's the only way we could avoid leaks. Play it in space. Like, I think that is where they're going to go. And they've already alluded to it. I think it was Strauss himself was saying that they are revving up for the marketing campaign this summer. So I'm expecting probably July it kicks off. And he said that, like, when we start doing that, we are really excited about some of the stuff we have planned for really novel and interesting marketing that people have never seen before, which I pray to God does not mean we're just doing a bunch of Mr. Beast videos. I hope that's not what they mean, but never say never. But overall, my guess is it's going to be a lot of like just insane, what is even happening right now kind of marketing. That's my guess. Sorry, I apologize. My dog is barking. There is a delivery man dropping off a package, and Romeo thinks the world is ending. He's like, oh my God, Dad, come help, Dad. You've jinxed it into existence now, Luke. Yeah, probably. Honestly, now that I say Mr. Beast GTA 6 crossover, I would not be surprised if that's happening now. God damn it. I hope not, but that would be so stupid. Because then I'm going to have to watch a Mr. Beast video on stream. Wouldn't that be the cruelest irony of all of this? Wouldn't that be so freaking hilarious if that's how this ends? If that's where we end up with all of this. GTA 6 was great, but I had to watch a Mr. Beast video, so I'm pretty bummed about it, honestly. Anyway, good video from Saukko. I think overall, you're in the right ballpark. I think there's probably like some little tidbits and things where like you could probably find a few holes to poke in it. And it's like, oh, well, maybe I don't know if they're double claiming US expenses or if that's stacked here. But that's the thing is, even if you find $500 million to cut off of the estimate, we're still in the realm of billions and billions. Okay. So broad strokes, whether your glasses have your vision sharp or blurry, it's still crazy, crazy expensive. So I think that's the main takeaway. Link to video. Yes, absolutely. I can share it with you. Go give Saukko some love. And here, I can do it this way and go from there. PC port when? I think the PC port is realistically probably dropping in like a year and a half. Historically with Rockstar, again, we say that, but that really only means 2 releases. It's like GTA 5 and Red Dead. But at least in those instances, Rockstar dropped the PC port roughly, I think it was 18 months after the fact. I think with GTA 5 or Red Dead 2, we can check real quick. We'll do it live. With Red Dead 2, Release on PS4 and Xbox One on October 26th, 2018. And then on Windows, November of 2019. And then Stadia shortly after. But it was a full year later for Red Dead 2. So I would guess it's probably similar for GTA 6. It's probably similar. You know, that's my guess. Yeah, look at this. It broke several sales records, had the second biggest launch in the history of entertainment, generating 725 million in sales from its opening weekend and exceeding the lifetime sales of Red Dead Redemption 1 in 2 weeks. Yeah, it sold 82 million copies. As for this GTA 5 sales within 24 hours of its release, GTA 5 generated 815 million in worldwide revenue, equating to roughly 11 million copies sold in 24 hours. This was all the way back in 2013. 2013. The industry is way bigger today than it was in 2013. Way bigger. And so just imagine the scale we're talking about now. In September of 2013, they sold 11 million in 24 hours. 2026 with digital distribution, with pre-orders. In 2013, most of those copies were physical, okay? Most of those copies were people buying a physical copy of the game. Nowadays, people just pre-order it, download it. Like, I think we are, dude, we're talking 25 million, 30 million day one. Yeah, whatever number you think, they could go higher, I think. Like, it will just, on a fundamental and foundational level, be different. Like, no joke. I have said before, I think there will be a quantifiable hit on the electrical grid when GTA 6 launches, because I think tons of people, I think there will be a mark where like businesses are having to shut down like it's a national emergency because so many people are calling out of work for launch day. I think so many young men especially will be calling out and all of a sudden get sick and have to stay home. I think you'll see internet infrastructure buckle because people are trying to download the game at the last possible minute. Hopefully they do preloading, but we'll see. Like, I think it will be such a massive release that it will be like somebody said earlier that it will cause the government to to like, or it'll cause the world to go and stand still. Unironically, like I think it actually will be a beat where it's going to be like, you know, COVID lockdowns when those happen and no cars are on the streets. I think it'll be kind of like that for a day or two. Yeah. How many people bought a PS5? That's how much GTA 5 or GTA 6 will sell. Well, assuming they aren't going to buy PS6s in the weeks leading up to GTA 6 or when they buy GTA 6. Like, you better believe Sony is revving up production to make sure they can meet the demand. Like, that's going to happen. Why do you think Sony just raised the price of the consoles? Why not? If they know you're going to buy a PS5 for GTA 6, why not charge you an extra $100? You're going to pay it and you're going to like it. That's their approach. They're like, we know you want GTA 6, so you're going to suck it up and you're going to like it. Yeah, it's going to be crazy and outrageous, but I'm expecting the marketing cycle to kick off probably in July. They've said this summer is what Strauss said specifically. So I think that probably it's summer. I think launching in June, the marketing campaign would be surprising, but never say never. But we'll see. He took my thing.